So I've been asked to speak about the state of nonprofit theater across the country, and in particular, the new play universe. And I have precisely 11 minutes. So pardon me if I speak quickly. It's a big topic. To start us off on a happy foot, as actually Gary and Dean, where's Dean? He was, and Dean were saying, you guys know this, but I was surprised when you look at the statistics. We are living in a period of record abundance for theater. And here in Kansas City, in fact, too. Playwriting is flourishing in this country like never before. An almost tenfold increase in the number of theaters in this country in the past 20 years has gone hand in hand with a giant increase in the number of playwrights who are being served by more retreats, training programs, camps, seminars, festivals, development programs, organizations, and advocacy groups. And according to the Dramatists Guild, there are 10,000 playwrights in the country today. You know, I mean, throw a rock in New York City and you get a playwright. As well as like 5 other people who are developing their plays, or working on their plays, or acting in their plays, or taking 10% of their plays. Which reminds me of the Robert Anderson quote, the guy who wrote Tea and Sympathy, that, you know, you can make a killing in the theater, but you can't make a living. In the years 1940 to 1960, an average of 44 new plays opened on Broadway each year, which is about 1 every week. In the first decade of the 21st century, that number was, anybody want to guess? About 6. So 1 every 2 months. That's 6 playwrights making the big bucks out of 10,000 every year. So what about the other 9,994 playwrights? Well, Theater Development Fund, the folks who make that TKTS booth in Times Square, they commissioned a book-length study on the subject, and they found that the average working professional playwright makes about $30,000 a year and lives in New York. Yeah, that's a punchline, folks. He, and he's a he about 52% of the time, makes about $15,000 of that from work completely unrelated to playwriting, like waiting tables. He makes $6,000 from teaching playwriting. He makes $5,000 writing for TV and film, and any math majors here? That leaves $4,000 from the plays that he actually writes. Oh, and how old is he? He's 38 years old. So the paradox is very clear, isn't it, right? I mean, we've created this giant industry designed to encourage playwrights to write plays, and yet, as a field, we are utterly failing to produce them. But not this company. This company is willing to take a risk, to be bold, and that's why I am so very proud to be here. In 1965, Andre Gregory, the guy from My Dinner with Andre, he said, "I'm scared that the regional theater, by the time it's matured, will have bored the shit out of millions of people around." So you don't need me to tell you that he's absolutely right. So there was a whole bunch of innovative artists working in the 70s and 80s, and they realized, wait, theater doesn't have to be boring. How great. And without the benefit of Twitter or Facebook, or even knowing each other, they launched a revolution of which Unicorn was a part. To counter the dominance of these big regional theaters that Gregory was talking about, they programmed plays. These mid-sized theaters began to program plays that would cater to those with more diverse interests than just what the regional theaters would do, right? So you had theaters, then you had black theaters, and you had Latino theaters, and you had gay theaters springing up, and you had theaters for people with disabilities, and you had theaters for young audiences, and of course you had new play theaters. And plunging right into the middle of this very fertile, very rich ground was the Unicorn. And I believe that the great resurgence of American theater, the resurgence that brought us Angels in America, the Laramie Project, How I Learned to Drive, has been written, is being written by these mid-sized theater companies like the Unicorn. These theaters do not aim to become the biggest theaters in the city, and that's why they can routinely be the best. They take the risks that the big boys can't. They can cultivate the most curious and adventurous and passionate theatergoers because they believe, that their staffs believe, and the artists that come work at places like Unicorn, that the Unicorn believe, that every story that they tell on their stages is going to be precious and sacred and important and right for this minute and for their communities. Now, I'm not trying to say that small and poor is better than big and wealthy, especially tonight. Almost the opposite, in fact. I'm trying to say that we're moving into a time when smaller and wealthy, or should I say intimate and professional, is the key to theater survival in this country. I really believe it. Intimate, engaged, and engaging art is where the form is headed. And I will tell you why. There are 4 trends that I believe that we're looking at in the American theater in this country. The first, radical geocentrism. Sounds fancy. I made up the term. Thanks to the technology technology of the 21st century, you could, this morning you might have been at Casey Anthony's sentencing, or you might have been in Cairo for the revolution, but you would still need a plane to get to Broadway to go see theater. And that's why, over the next 20 years, I think all great art is going to be created locally. By local artists, with local connections, and local interests. I'm thinking here of Cynthia and Unicorn, and I'm thinking of Ron Simonian, Kansas City playwright, who's done 5 plays of his in the past 6 in the past decade. That's sort of unbelievable. It's forward-thinking, it's spot on, and it's right, and I hope you realize how unusual that is around the country. That kind of a commitment to a local playwright. Unicorn is investing in his career, his livelihood, and his desire to make Kansas City a home that's hospitable to the culture and the arts. Point 2 is radical collaboration. That's what National New Play Network was all about. It's about maximizing a small number of resources and spreading risk across a large number of theaters that are interested in doing it. Again, Unicorn is leading the way. Back in 2005, you guys produced the Rolling World premiere, right? Of Permanent Collection, the very first Rolling World premiere, where we actually put consortia, theaters together who are willing to take this kind of a risk and do a brand new play without the benefit of reviews. And the playwright ends up getting lots more money and lots more productions and lots more opportunities to meet with artistic teams. That play, Permanent Collection, has gone on to more than 24 productions, not only around the country, but around the world, and has made a tidy sum for Tom, the playwright. And now we have supported more than 25 plays in over 100 productions in just the 5 years since then, through the Continued Life of New Plays Fund. So again, Unicorn ahead and in the lead. Trend number 3 is, I think, something you alluded to just now, radical intimacy. Right? I don't mean a return to the strip clubs of 47th Street. not that kind of radical intimacy. I mean that the easier it is for us to be part of a giant crowd virtually on the internet, the more important it's going to be for us to be part of an intimate crowd in reality. And that's what's so great about Unicorn, and the fact that you have 2 spaces in which to do it. And the 4th trend, our technological age demands radical transparency, which is a little harder to talk about. But indeed, like, you can be part of just about anything you want to be part of by Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Patrons and artists expect radical and immediate transparency with the institutions that they're a part of. And the institutions that take advantage of that desire, and I don't mean electronically necessarily, by saying, welcome, we want you to be involved. We want to get to know you and talk about the art we create. Those are the ones that are not only going to survive this massive cultural shift we're going through, but are going to thrive in it. I'm thinking actually, again, you brought up Green Whales. I'm thinking about Leah Romeo, excuse me, who you met at the MFA Playwrights Workshop at the Kennedy Center, which is also an NNPM program. Cynthia did something radically transparent that this TDF study I was telling you about pointed at as a problem, something that Cynthia solved. You guys did Green Whales, which nobody else was going to touch. And then you said, after you did Green Whales, hey Leah, what else are you writing? Can I see what else you're writing? Will you share it with me? That invitation to be part of a theater's life is very unusual nationally, in this city, anywhere that I've been. And you guys now are doing Leah's play number next year, and that is unbelievable. So, the last thing I'm going to say, before I just say, well, how great is it that we're all being very forward-thinking, I don't think I need to convince you that theater is a really good thing, but I'm going to try anyway. So remember the time when, to have a cultural experience, you actually had to leave the house. Do you remember that time? I remember that. You had to enter what's called the public square, where you might encounter people who smelled differently than you, or looked differently, or had strange behaviors, or God forbid they actually might have a different opinion from your opinion. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. You can go to the movies on your iPad. You can go to the ball game 24 hours a day in your living room, though you people would have to watch the Royals. You can even go to the museum on your computer. This is true. The Norton Museum of Art in Boston, really one of the finest art museums in the country, they have this thing where you can build your own online gallery. It's called the Museum of You, right? So let's say you've never liked the Old Masters, or you never liked Jackson Pollock, but you really love water lilies. So you can create a museum that you can visit every day of just Impressionists. Why not? You will never have to experience a piece of art with which you're unfamiliar. Technology has thus, in creating a vast virtual public square, destroyed the real one. The public square of smells and tastes and radically different ideas. And in so doing, it's made it impossible to avoid any point of view other than your own, except, as Gary said, unless you want to see theater. Live performance requires you to enter the public square, and the greater ease which technology affords, the greater draw live theater and live performance is always going to have. It does take some effort. It demands that we stop. It demands that we wait, and that we pay attention for an hour, or two, or even 3. And why, in this nightmare of infinite connectivity, would I put down my BlackBerry to do that? Last year, I interviewed Bart Scher, the Tony-winning director of Loewith Piazza, and told me this story. He said, well, this woman came up to me after a show at my theater. She's a cancer care nurse. She goes every day into extreme situations in wards where she takes care of patients at the ends of their lives and helps keep them comfortable and monitors their care and their treatment. She's got a very, very difficult job. And she told me, I love to come to the theater because, and to your theater, because when I come and I participate in these stories, whether they're classics or new plays, they fill me up and give me the spirit to go back to my job. And I bring those stories back with me. So she can see a new play by Craig Lucas or Uncle Vanya or Loewith Piazza and have an engagement with other people in the community. She can learn something about her world. She can remember ideas that come from her past. She can have a taste of transcendence. And that's why you come to Unicorn, isn't it? When the work here gratifies and rewards the sacrifice that you've made, the stories that matter to you told in intimate and immediate settings, when they grab you, then you actually, and this is something that as an artist and director I believe, you physically become deprogrammed from this hyper-connected world. Your concentration isn't split into 100 different things. How do I know if a show is successful? I don't know if you do this, Cynthia, but I sit in the back row and I know that a show is successful when an audience is breathing as one. And if a show is successful, if we've done all the right things, and it doesn't happen every time. In fact, it happens rarely, but when it does, and the audience is breathing all at once, the last 15 minutes of a show, I like to think of as this golden time, when it's possible for transcendence and transformation to actually happen, where you can actually, instead of being bored, instead of thinking about your BlackBerry, instead of thinking about, I got back to the kids, I gotta go do this, I gotta do that, you're actually opening yourself to self-reflection, to a story, to empathy for a story that is not yours, but could be yours. That's magic, and that's what Cynthia and the team here at Unicorn have been doing, aiming for that golden time for the past 36 years, without all the money for the bells and whistles. They're doing it with plays that you haven't heard of. Do you understand the risk and the difficulty of that? They could go and they could program. They aren't taking the easy way out by producing a play with a familiar title. Instead, Unicorn is refusing, if I may sort of paraphrase Andre Gregory, they refuse to bore the shit out of you. And instead, they are working tirelessly to thrill the imagination into you, to provide you with a moment of transcendence that you will bring back into your daily life to make it richer as a gift from their daily life. I'm proud and honored to be with you tonight. Thank you, Cynthia, for 36 years of transcendence.